This is it. E4. I'm so tense, and I watched this game live. I know the result of this game. Some of you might. I'm still so tense, and we'll talk about it after. E4, E5. A Spanish. All right? In fact, a Spanish which we've already seen before. We have seen all that. Literally all of that. Knight C3 was played in the other game. Excuse me. Bishop D2 was played in the other game, and then it was Knight C6 and stuff like this. This time we have Knight C3. So Jan plays it a bit differently. Rook B8. Bishop B1. That's a weird move. Apparently it's prep. But what is this? What is this utter disrespect putting the bishop on the knight square stuck behind 3 pawns? What? Now, clearly the idea here is something like this, bishop A2, all right? I'll take it, all right? That looks pretty good. I get it. I understand the idea. What happens if black just doesn't give back the pawn, though? Like, what is going on here, right? And Ding's like, well, you want to get out, so I'm not going to let you get out. B3. Point is that if you take, there is this. So Ding plays the move C5. Knight A4, Knight C6. Jan comes back, and Jan apparently should have played the move C3 here, kind of monitoring all of this, slowly trying to get all his pieces out. He drops back the knight immediately, and Ding plays A5 for the second time. His pawn is hanging, and it's a very tense position. Don't listen to Stockfish. I mean, it's spouting out some random evals. This position is utterly tense, and Jan plays the move ever getting in the game. Bishop D2, Bishop C7. Oh, there it is. But you can't even go D4. So clearly something has gone massively wrong, right? And in this position, Liren plays F5. Pawn to F5 is an indication he don't want no draw. All right? He is starting a same side, king side attack. Here comes the rook. Every single piece that Liren has in this position is attacking. He is going to go E4. He's going to go F4 and Queen G6 and all of this good stuff. And essentially right now what we have is an unstoppable force in the black position versus an immovable object in the white position. Will black break through?
He makes the move F5.
Yeah, E4 is an idea for sure. It's definitely on the cards.
If this were a blitz game, I would say black wins this position a high percentage of the time, but it is rapid despite the fact that Jan is playing so quickly. But we have so many ideas in this position. E4, maybe even F4 at some moment, because F3 would be a big threat to open up your king. I know that gives white the light square, so you have to time it well, but there could be a position where you play F4 and E4 and Knight E5, and then you just take control over the king side. This is a bad piece, and I actually want to put this on the board just to show everybody what that could look like. Is let's say I make some move like here, and I play E4, and I go F4, and I'm just going to make a few random moves where you, yes, F3 is crushing, but even without F3, if I put a knight on E5, this bishop is terrible. And I may have F3, and if you just stop it with F3 of your own at some point, the dark squares are vulnerable. There could be a rook lift swinging to the king side. This would be a serious attack that white may not be prepared to withstand. So I'm just looking at E4 and F4, a thematic type of pawn sacrifice to free up that E5 square. Tanya, that was one of your ideas.
I love it. I love seeing F5 on the board. What you're pointing out, not just the E4 pawn sacrifice, but coupled with that F pawn advancing down the board to create more weaknesses on the king side. You asked this question, would you rather be white or black a couple of moves ago? And while at that point, I think the answer was white. Now anyone, any day of the week, any day of the year would pick black in this situation.
Jan in this position is begging for a pawn break. Why is he begging for a pawn break? Because they all have drawbacks. This allows Queen E4. And if this opens up, hello, cowabunga on the diagonal. If you don't play F4 and instead you play E4 trying to go Knight E5, I will bust open this position and my bishop will still come alive. And Jan finally succeeds. Pawn to E4 is a mistake, an inaccuracy, if you will. But maybe it was the only move. I mean, Ding can only shuffle back and forth so much. He plays E4, pawn takes E4, follows it up with a knight move, but look at the time. That was clearly the idea. And by the way, look at this. The rook is guarding the bishop. Jan Nepomniachtchi, a defensive savant. Knight E5, queen drops back to G2. Folks, white is a move away from getting this. This is game over for black. Queen G2, king and queen have a hug before the battle begins. Ding plays knight D3. We have takes, takes, e takes f5, and Jan is better in the ensuing endgame and has double Ding's time.
I'm surprised that the bar is even like a little bit in White's favor. It must be for some concrete reason, because positionally speaking, Black has a passed a pawn. Black is getting rook takes f5, and the bishop on e1 remains a pretty poor piece, and I don't see the downside of rook takes f5. There is some kind of queen c6 maybe, but I think rook f7 covers all the threats from what I think it does. So why is White even like, why is White not worse here is my question, because the a pawn is a more important pawn than White's f pawn, right? If we're talking about which extra pawn each side has in the position. In the endgame, you know, potentially White could be in danger.
And Jan plays this, 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 this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for White. Jan is up a pawn. Jan is up 6 minutes. You literally cannot draw it up any better. In this position, Jan must play rook d2. Rook d2 blocks the bishop's vision here, but you cannot take this because I have queen d5 check, king to h8, and I get closer with my pieces. I have rook e2 and all this stuff, and White has a dominant position. But instead of that, Jan plays this, and mind you, very quickly gives back the pawn on f5, and now it's anybody's game. I mean, it's an open game. Pawn is coming down the board. It's a 3-on-2 on the other side. One side's king is definitely weaker than the other side's. So we have bishop d2, we have h6, queen c6 infiltrating, king h7 hiding from the action, bishops meeting in the center of the board, queen e8, bishop takes c3. Jan is down a pawn, but look at Black's position. Black is struggling here. Queen d7, queen e2, dancing around each other. Ding can't push his pawns yet. Queen e4 check. Ding has 90 seconds left on the clock, and the players start repeating moves. We have a repetition of moves going on. Ding, 90 seconds on the clock. And here, the move heard around the world, rook g6! He played it with a minute! He said, no, I don't want to draw. What? Is he out of his mind? I don't want to draw. He wants to lose this world championship. h4, h5. I mean, I don't know. You name it. He can't push either of his pawns. Ding Liren is playing for a win with a minute on the clock. Jan, immediately devastated by this news, plays queen f5, which is a minor inaccuracy. It's not a big deal. And he plays pawn to c4 to advance. Ding. h4, and all of a sudden, here comes queen d3. By threatening a queen trade, the queen escapes all the way back home, and the rook is behind the pawn, and Ding Liren is completely winning. He is completely winning. He's just going to push his c-pawn. Queen a8, rook d6. Oh, he's not completely winning anymore. This is completely nuts. So instead of playing rook d6, he just had to go forward. Yes, rook d8 looks scary or something, but there's nothing. He just had to be brave. He just had to be brave. Instead, he trades the rooks. Queen e4, queen g6, but what? Wait, he has no advantage anymore. Bishop to d4, and now Jan is going to threaten mate. And the bishop is hanging, and the pawn is hanging, and you can't just play a3, right? Surely you can't just play... Wait a minute, he just played a3. And in this position, Jan now has a draw again, but it's impossible to find. It's this. You can't sack a bishop here to force a draw. It's apparently perpetual check. I mean, the computer sees it. But also, Jan can play h5, burying the king and disallowing advancement. But he plays queen c7. And Ding Liren now comes back, pushes his pawn, and Jan cannot stop both pawns. Ding brings the bishop back, plays h5 himself, centralizes his bishop, and now there is a red carpet for all of his pawns. g4, hg, h5, and on move 68 of the 18th game of the World Chess Championship 2023, Jan Nepomniachtchi resigned, and Ding Liren, against all odds, is the new classical world champion. Although it was decided in rapid, which is weird. But that's the way it works.